The New York Jets have seen countless saviors come and go over recent decades, constantly getting their hopes up, only to be let down and told they are the same old Jets. This year, things are slightly different. Aaron Glenn is a New York Jet through and through, having represented the team as a first-round pick, a personnel scout, and now the head coach. This is not a man who wants preferential treatment, though. Aaron Glenn has taken pride in earning his place at the top and welcomes any challenge he may face now that he is here. From being the first-round pick of the New York Jets in 1994 to being a restaurant owner and an area scout, this is Aaron Glenn's remarkable homecoming journey to save the New York Jets. Aaron Glenn has been one of the most highly coveted names in the 2025 head coaching cycle, but there was ever only one team that really had a chance. The New York Jets gave him his first job back in the NFL in 1994, so it is fitting that they are the team that helped him realize his dream of sitting in the head coach's chair. One of the many attributes that make Glenn such an appealing head coaching candidate is that he was a top-tier player back in the day. He entered the league as one of the most exciting young defensive talents, good enough to convince the New York Jets to use the 12th overall pick on him in the 1994 draft. The newest Jets cornerback was a hit, sticking with the franchise for 8 seasons of his career. During that time, he snagged 24 interceptions, which stood as a Jets record amongst cornerbacks until Darrelle Revis beat it with 25. The highlight of his impressive career in green and white was the first of his 3 pick sixes, which was a 100-yard play. From a team perspective, Glenn's most successful years came between the 1997 season and 1999, which us Jets fans know were the Bill Parcells years. The great head coach experienced only 5 losing seasons along his 19-year career, winning 2 Super Bowls along the way. He took over the Jets in 1997 that had gone 8 straight years without a winning season, and promptly lifted them to a 9-7 record. It's important to note that the Jets went 1-15 before this season with Rich Kotite as the head coach, so Aaron Glenn has first-hand experience as a player to watch the New York Jets go from last and be relevant again under Bill Parcells. After the 9-7 record, they went to the AFC Championship game, losing to the eventual Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos. Bill Parcells is etched into the history books as one of the sport's greatest coaches, and he has certainly made a huge impact on Aaron Glenn, who still calls him a close friend and a mentor to this day. Bill Parcells had this to say to ESPN's Rich Cimini: "I know he's done an awful lot of diligent work to prepare himself to be a pro coach. He worked hard over the years. He started in scouting, which is a very good place to start. And he learned about personnel acquisition, prototypes, and things like that. He knows all that." Bill Parcells is correct. Aaron Glenn has indeed worked hard to get where he is now. And while he did start in scouting, he took an interesting detour first, which began in 2005 while Glenn was playing for Dallas. In a year where he racked up 32 tackles and 4 interceptions for the Cowboys, Glenn also ventured into the food industry, opening a fried chicken restaurant in Houston. A second and third restaurant soon followed, leading to Glenn having 8 by the time he retired in 2008. He told the Pivot podcast that he owned these until 2011 and was doing a damn good job with them. However, despite his success running restaurants, wasn't really what made him tick. Football was always his first love, and when he found himself at home shouting at the game on his TV, his wife said a few words that changed his life forever.
My wife's sitting there and she was like, "AG." I'm like, "What?" She said, "Go coach."
Right.
I'm like, "Wow. What do you mean?" She said, "Listen, it's cool you doing your restaurant thing, right? And you like that, but you love ball. You love ball." And man, when I tell you a weight was off my shoulders after that.
Now, as a 15-year pro with 634 tackles, 41 career interceptions, and 6 touchdowns underneath his belt, AG understandably had a leg up on the competition when it comes to coaching in the NFL. Nevertheless, he made sure to do it right. He told the Pivot podcast that he was not interested in getting any special treatment. He wanted to start at the bottom and work his way up, learning every single thing he needed to know along the way. He got his feet wet as a scout for the Jets between 2012 and 2013, driving here, there, and everywhere to scout college players. Then, when it turned out he was good at that, the Cleveland Browns offered him the assistant defensive backs coaching position, which he gladly took. While doing this, he also got stuck into quality control, which involves analyzing game film, charting opponents, and formulating game plans to prepare the team for a game.
Because I want to make sure I didn't miss one step. I want to start from the bottom. I told everybody I was there, don't treat me any different than anybody else. right? Because I want to understand everything there is about the scouting process. I want to know everything about being a QC. I want to know everything about being an assistant coach, all right, to a lead DB coach, to a defense coordinator I am right now, right? And I'm hoping to be a head coach at some point.
Now, hearing that has got to make you feel pretty good if you're a New York Jets fan today. Aaron Glenn could not sound more like head coaching material. Having gone about the coaching journey in absolutely the best way possible, this is a guy who knows how to be a good player and what a successful locker room looks like, both under Parcells as a player in the 90s and as a coach with Sean Payton and Dan Campbell. He has done his research, and Jets fans couldn't ask for a better person to come in as being their head coaching savior. And boy, do the New York Jets need a savior. Their lack of playoff action since 2010 means that the Jets are responsible for the longest active playoff drought across America's 4 biggest sports, with 14 years. Furthermore, there have been no division wins since 2002, and the team's last and only 4,000-yard passer was Joe Namath in 1967. Aaron Glenn has a formidable task on his hands, but he is uniquely well-suited to get the job done. The New York media market is renowned for being one of the most hostile in America, and the Jets themselves are known for not exactly being the best-run organization. Well, with Glenn having played and scouted for the Jets, he knows exactly what to expect, and perhaps even already has ideas about how to solve any organizational flaws. He is going in with his eyes wide open, fully aware of what to expect, which cannot be said for other coaches who have tried and failed over the last couple of decades. Furthermore, AG is coming straight out of a locker room in Detroit that has clearly been one of the most cohesive and well-coached locker rooms in the entire NFL over the last few years. He joined the Lions in 2021 at a time when the team had just cleared out their general manager, head coach, and starting quarterback. Aaron Glenn was a key part of the brain trust tasked with turning that organization around, which is exactly what they did. Detroit went from being 3-13-1 in 2021 to 9-8 in 2022, 12-5 in 2023, and 15-2 this past season. The Lions, like the Jets, were starved for success, and Glenn was a key part in helping them become an NFC powerhouse in just 3 seasons. He has seen and contributed to the success, and now Jets fans will be desperately hoping he can produce some of that Detroit magic here in New York. Defensively, the Detroit Lions gave up the second most points in 2021, averaging out at 27.5 points per game. By 2024, that number had dropped to just 20.1, which ranked 7th in the NFL. The Lions also ranked as a top 5 run defense in each of Glenn's last 2 seasons in charge, and this most recent season, the Detroit Lions were the best defense in the NFL on third down. Just think how much better that number would have been if they didn't sustain so many injuries as well. Marcus Davenport was lost for the season in September, kickstarting an unbelievable trend of defensive players getting injured, with almost 24 players on IR by week 15. These included key players such as Aleem McNeil, Malcolm Rodriguez, Carlton Davis, Alex Alazzoni, and of course Aiden Hutchinson, who suffered a season-ending injury in week 6, having already racked up a league-leading 7.5 sacks. That is an outrageous list of injuries to be dealing with, and Glenn showed his quality in still being able to motivate and scheme his defense and being a top 10 unit. On top of that, he helped youngsters such as Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph develop into game-changing studs, with the latter leading the NFL with 9 interceptions. Of course, now as the head coach of the New York Jets, Glenn has several young players who should be very excited about receiving similar treatment. Sauce Gardner was one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL before having an underwhelming third season in 2024. Similarly, Michael Carter II in the slot stands out as another key weapon for Glenn to work his magic with, having signed a deal at the beginning of the 2024 season to be the highest paid slot corner in the NFL. Sauce Gardner has already hinted at his excitement at the hire, and isn't the only one. Former player Andrew Hawkins, who has played under Glenn, praised the hire by saying,
"The way that the players gravitate to him. For a head coach, your job is 3 things: to prepare your players, motivate your players, and manage the game and throughout the season." When you look at the job he's done with the Lions defense this year, he's done just that. For them to have as many injuries as they have and then continue to figure out ways to fill those voids and find those blind spots, and even on the defensive backfield side, the seasons that Branch is having, Joseph had, I mean, there's a direct correlation to the fact that Aaron Glenn is the one running that defense.
Legendary Jets quarterback Joe Namath also shared his excitement, tweeting, "I'm hoping all Jets fans are as thrilled as my family and I that Aaron Glenn is our new head coach. I wish the season would start next week." And here's a clip of my reaction when the New York Jets hired Aaron Glenn. It's a breath of fresh air. And the fact that he's tied to the New York Jets organization since 1994 when he was drafted here, it's just a feel-good story. And I'm excited about it, man. I really, really am. That's the key here. This is not just a great head coaching hire from an X's and O's or leadership perspective. It is a great hire because Aaron Glenn is heading home to lead the organization that gave him his first taste of action in the NFL. On the topic of X's and O's, finding good offensive and defensive coordinators will be key to Glenn's success, as will the general manager hire. Obviously, Glenn will want to make his mark. Aaron Glenn, of course, is not the only new arrival in New York to be tasked with turning this ship around, though. He now has his newly signed offensive and defensive coordinators in the building, along with Darren Muji as general manager. It is clear from these signings that Aaron Glenn is the man in charge of the operation, taking on a CEO-like role, rather than just being the head coach. For example, at 39 years old, Darren Muji is a relatively inexperienced general manager and somebody who is likely to play second fiddle to Glenn. Muji's role will be to deliver his head coach's vision, with owner Woody Johnson even referring him to a good sidekick for Glenn. All of Darren Muji's front office experience came with the Denver Broncos, where he worked his way all the way up to becoming the assistant general manager. He started off as an intern in 2012 and was a scout for them all the way up to 2019. Before being promoted to assistant director of college scouting in 2020, and from there it was a quick journey up the ranks to director of player personnel in 2021, and finally assistant GM in 2022. Darren Muji first crossed paths with Aaron Glenn when the Broncos interviewed him for their vacant head coaching position back in 2022, and was apparently blown away by the powerful message delivered by Glenn when asked to pretend he was addressing the team. By all accounts, they have hit the ground running and are singing the same song sheet now that they have been paired up in New York, where the pressure is on to turn around a team that hasn't achieved a winning season since 2015. The one area that has generally been strong for New York in recent years is the defense, which will now be the responsibility of Steve Wilks, who has taken over as the defensive coordinator. This hiring is another suggestion that Glenn wants to have more of an overseeing role, as he will know he can fully trust Wilks, a former head coach, to handle the defense. Obviously, Glenn will want to make his mark on the defensive side of the ball, but Wilks' experience will allow Glenn to focus more on the bigger picture, including instilling the culture that has been lacking here in recent years. Despite his one stint as a head coach being a disappointing one, Steve Wilks has earned a reputation as a very sharp defensive mind, and his defensive philosophy is very similar to Aaron Glenn's. In particular, they both love to play aggressively when it comes to pass rush. The Panthers had a league-high blitz rate of 42.6% when Steve Wilks was their defensive coordinator in 2017, before he moved to be the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals in 2018, who promptly became the league's most blitz-happy team with a blitz rate of 41.6%. As the Browns' defensive coordinator in 2019 and the Panthers' defensive pass game coordinator in 2022, Wilks never ranked lower than 6th in blitz rate, suggesting New York's defense will be pinning their ears back in 2025, which will be a completely different philosophy on defense, as Robert Saleh, he loved to just rush 4. The only deviation from the norm for Wilks was in San Francisco in 2023, when he essentially had to adapt to the 49er way, ranking 30th with a 20.5 blitz rate. While in San Fran, Wilks did produce the third best scoring defense in the NFL and helped the 49ers take Kansas City to overtime in the Super Bowl. But he was then fired after one season, with head coach Kyle Shanahan citing philosophical differences. Now in New York, Wilks shares a similar philosophical approach to his new head coach in Aaron Glenn, while also offering an experienced and competent set of hands that Glenn won't have to keep too close of an eye on. On the offensive side of things, the New York Jets have gone for a slightly different approach, bringing in the young and exciting Tanner Engstrand. Engstrand was with Glenn in Detroit, surviving the coaching turnover in 2021 to become a part of the incredible rebuild job carried out by Dan Campbell and their staff. After starting out as an offensive assistant in 2020, Engstrand moved to the offensive quality control coach in 2021, before taking over as the tight ends coach and pass game coordinator in 2022. In 2023 and 2024, he operated purely as the pass game coordinator, operating under Ben Johnson, which would be very exciting news for Jets fans. In contrast to the stagnant offenses from Adam Gase and Nathaniel Hackett, Engstrand reflects the new modern approach to offensive football. Jets fans will be hoping he could bring over his take on the Detroit Lions scheme that made Jared Goff an MVP candidate. When filling out your coaching staff, you want coaches who have operated under the best offensive minds and have been exposed to exciting new modern concepts, which is exactly what Tanner Engstrand has done. Not only has he worked with Ben Johnson in Detroit, he was also part of the Jim Harbaugh's coaching staff at San Diego and in Michigan, which will have also been an incredibly valuable learning experience. He is a young and up-and-coming coach with a lot of upside, which is exactly what the Jets need after so many years of lackluster offense. Between the homecoming story of Aaron Glenn, the experience of Steve Wilks, and the upside of Tanner Engstrand, New York Jets fans should feel very positive about the new era of Jets football. It has been doom and gloom for years, but there is talent on this roster to work with. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Olu Fashanu, Joe Tippmann, Elijah Vera Tucker, Quinnen Williams, Quincy Williams, Will McDonald, and Jermaine Johnson provide a very promising core to build around. As Darren Muji said in his opening press conference, when you know what you've got in the building and it's good, you want to keep it together. Whether this new coaching staff can turn that talent into results and find a way to keep them together for years to come remains to be seen. But for now, Jets fans can be happy that they have their man in Aaron Glenn. Yes, it is a tough task he has on his hands, but AG prides himself on taking the tough route. He's embracing that challenge and won't be someone who will make excuses along the way. He is a true leader who learned from the best and made sure to leave no stone unturned on his route to the top. So what do you think the future holds for the New York Jets? Is Aaron Glenn going to be the man to break through the playoff drought? Let me know in the comment section, folks. And don't forget to hit the like button as well. And if you guys want to see more content like this, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Let's go, Jets.